This podcast recording is a project for JMS494 at San Diego State University for fall 2025. I'm Mariana Marquez.
And I'm Ina Lelevier.
And in today's audio piece, we will discuss and analyze an event that relates to the course topics and concepts in JMS494 Media Law and Ethics. Welcome to the Guess What podcast.
Mariana.
Hi, Ina.
Guess what?
What?
So the Department of Defense has banned more than 500 titles from its military schools, alleging that the books promote quote-unquote woke ideologies about race, gender, sex, and sexuality. And this is an article written by the ACLU.
This is very important because it definitely relates to freedom of speech, expression, and also the freedom of press. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, of course. So before we dive deep, let me just read a little bit of the First Amendment just to remind our viewers or listeners. So, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
This issue is super important when it comes to the First Amendment because we're not just talking about the ban of books in one district, right? We're talking about the military defense department and their education system that's under their branch. So that is something we want to go in depth in how it's a stripping away of books, pieces of media, written media at the time, but also I think of consumption.
Yeah.
Taking away.
Yeah.
Right?
So let
Take
me
it away, Ina.
so let me explain why this is an issue. So this is according to PEN America, a freedom to write organization. So, quote, two things help us make sense of the world: information and stories. Both explain, describe, and give language to the world we encounter. It is not a surprise then that banning books is a way of erasing stories, identities, experiences, and peoples and reshaping understandings of the past. Dr. Rudin Sims Bishop warns, quote, when children cannot find themselves reflected in the books they read, or when the images they see are distorted, negative, or laughable, they learn a powerful lesson about how they are devalued in the society of which they are a part, end quote. Stories tell us who we are and who we can become. This right, the right to discover, is being taken away from these students under the guise of their, quote, protection, end quote. So many quotes.
That's a very important one, and I definitely want to go in depth and like how this freedom of consumption, right? And it's super relevant to just overall this major arcing theme that we see in our discussion in this course is the First Amendment, the rights, right? So now we're seeing how an education system under the defense systems in our government and society, it's stripping away these opportunities for people to consume media and also to interact with it in a way to also inform themselves.
Yeah, definitely. It's like the government is trying to control our basic human right to choose for ourselves. This is basically the government erasing history by spreading misinformation about the series of events that actually happen in history by getting rid of these pieces of media.
I completely agree, and actually explained by David L. Hudson Jr., a professor at Belmont University College of Law and also a First Amendment law expert. He says, quote, book bans violate the First Amendment because they deprive children or students of the right to receive information and ideas, end quote. I think this is super important to talk about. It's a discussion that is vital to our society. If this specific area of our government and society, and this is again something that we have seen in the past, and I'm going to reference quickly a case back in 1982. Have you heard of the Island Trees School District versus Pico?
Very briefly, but you can go ahead and explain it.
I will. So to our listeners, this was a Supreme Court case that addressed whether school boards could remove books from school libraries due to their content. So the court actually ended up ruling a 5-4 decision holding that school boards have discretion in curriculum, and they cannot remove books from libraries to deny student access, quoted again in the Supreme Court cases. In their archives, it says that they cannot, quote, they cannot remove books from the libraries to deny students access to diverse ideas for political, religious, or ideological reasons, though they can remove books for reasons like vulgarity or educational unsuitability, end quote. This is from the Supreme Court Center.
By removing these pieces of media, this is just a way of silencing students' curiosities. Like, these students are going to be going to libraries wanting to know more about this world, and they might even, they're not even going to know all this information that's going to be missing from their fingertips.
And I think it's super important because in the education system, many, and including us as students, we're given a lot of textbooks because that is the thing that we're going to be learning on. But if we remove these textbooks, again, important pieces of media that tell historical representations, not just of identities, but of experiences and lived out real historical context, then it's going to strip away the overall arcing thing, again, of our right to inform ourselves, but our right to know these stories for our own benefit and understanding of media and the world around us. So lastly, I just want to conclude with this statement from the American Library Association and Penn, which they agree that the majority of the books being banned are in the young adult category, with referencing all of these race and racism theories, right? So in conclusion,
these are scary times, man. Yes. The new generations are not being given the opportunity to choose for themselves. Their right to choose and self-discovery and the right to basic information is now being violated without their knowledge.
And that is all that we have for our Guess What podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and we'll see you again.